Tene tatari ngaran tanda tajong kamapake densa.
It's wonderful for me now to come here to the seat of the Gyalwang Karmapa, KTD, and to have this opportunity to meet all of you here. It's very wonderful, and I'd like to thank you all very much for first having entered the gate of the Dharma. Not only have you entered the gate of the Dharma, you've also been studying and practicing the Dharma, and I'd like to thank you for that as well. And not only that, you have come to the seat of the Gyalwang Karmapa. You are listening and contemplating. You are practicing the Dharma, and this is a really wonderful opportunity. We've had this chance to meet here, and so I'm very happy to have this opportunity to see you and to explain the Mahamudra Lineage prayer briefly. These instructions on Mahamudra they're particular instructions. They're instructions that are easy to do, and yet they also have a great purpose and a great meaning. Generally, when we do Dharma practice, there are practices that involve complications and practices without any complications. So practices that involve complications are like the visualization practices of the Yidam deity, the creation phase practices, or the completion stage practices of the 6 yogas, and so forth. And when you practice these, if you have they're a way to have the experience of the nature of Mahamudra and to meditate upon this. And so this is very important and a wonderful thing to do. But sometimes you don't have the opportunity to do these practices, these complicated practices, and you only can do the uncomplicated practices. And so in that time, if you can do the practice of Mahamudra, this is something that can eventually bring you to the supreme and ordinary accomplishments. These are the wonderful instructions that you can bring you to this result. And so you all practice Mahamudra regularly, and so especially for me to come here and to be able to teach Mahamudra is a very good opportunity, and it's really turned out very well. Not only that, you all can listen to these instructions. When you listen to them, you can practice them. And when you practice them, these are something that will bring you benefit in this life and in your future lifetimes. They will bring you a great benefit. And so this is the hope that I have, but it's not just my hope. Because of the compassion and the blessings of all of the incarnations of the Karmapa, and because of the compassion and blessings of all of the members, the golden garland of Kaju lineages, I'm certain that they will bring you great benefits. So I hope that they bring you benefit. This place where we are practicing Mahamudra, this place where we're listening and contemplating to Mahamudra is a wonderful place. This is the site that has been blessed by the Gyalwang Karmapa. And so this is his seat. This is a really wonderful seat of the Karmapas. And it's the seat of one of the great beings. It's the seat of the Gyalwang Karmapa, who is really one of the greatest of beings there are. Of course, in all of the world, in India, and Tibet, and China, and other lands, there have been many great bodhisattvas who have appeared. There have been many great individuals who have appeared. But among all of these, the greatest of all of them he is the greatest of all of them. In Tibet, when the Tibet first spread, then it was able to remain without disappearing for a long time. And so how is it that this happened? This happened because of all of those great beings who upheld the teachings, who were able to maintain their activity and uphold the teachings. And so first they would take birth, they would practice the Dharma, and then they would be able to spread the Dharma. Then when they pass away, then when they would get old, they would pass away into nirvana. So and if you do this in one lifetime, then the activity of spreading the Dharma cannot really go too far. There's not a whole lot of opportunity in one lifetime to spread and maintain the Dharma. So the Gyaltsen Karmapa has done this not just for one lifetime, but he has sent back emanation after emanation from lifetime after lifetime. And so that in Tibet, the Dharma has been able to spread. And so the first tulku in Tibet was the Gyaltsen Karmapa. And so what is the reason for being the tulku? It's as I just said. In a single lifetime, you haven't got a whole lot of a chance to spread the Dharma and to perform activity. A lifetime is just not all that long. And so if you continue from lifetime after lifetime, then you can get all the facilities together that you need to get together, and you can continue the activity and really spread the teachings. And so, in particular, this is why the teachings they've been able to maintain the teachings and spread the teachings for such a long time. And so the first being to have done this was the Gyaltsen Karmapa. And so his activity has thus spread all over. Because it has spread all over, the teachings have spread in Tibet, and they've been able to remain for a long time. And so this happens, of course, because of the activity of all those beings who uphold the teachings. But in particular, it has happened because of the activity of the Karmapa. So the teachings have remained without disappearing, and they've remained not only partially, but completely. And so for the teachings to remain without disappearing, and for them to remain not only partially but completely, when this happens, the generations change from time to time. And so sometimes in one generation, in one place, there will be all the facilities that you need to spread the Dharma, and yet in another place, there may not be all of the conditions and facilities you need to spread the Dharma. This is just the nature of how it is. The world is impermanent. It's always changing. And so because of that, the activity of the lamas changes from generation to generation. They often have to move from one place to another. And so you'll see that one incarnation of the Karmapa will perform the activity in one location. Another incarnation performs his activity in another location. And this is just because of the nature of the activity. If you were to try to perform a single activity in a single location and continue it from generation to generation, because of the change in time and place, then you wouldn't be able to perform vast activity. And so that is not how the Karmapa has done. He's had different types of activity in different locations. All of the different incarnations of the Karmapa have different types of activity. Some have lived very long lives. Some have, because of the conditions of their time, lived very short lives. And so they've lived in different ways and had different types of activity. Some have had very vast and huge types of activity. Some have had very easy, taken a very simple type of activity. So each of the Karmapas has their own particular features, and this is in order to spread the Dharma without it disappearing and maintain it. They take these different types of activity. And so in this way, the Karmapa has come in many different ways and times. And the first Karmapa was Dusum Khenpa. And so where did Dusum Khenpa receive his instructions from? Well, he received them from Gampopa. And so Gampopa, where did he receive his instructions from? Well, he received the Kadampa and the Mahamudra instructions and combined them into what we call the river of the union of Mahamudra and Kadampa. He received the Kadampa instructions from Atisha, and he received the Mahamudra and the instructions on Mahamudra and the profound path of the 6 yogas of Naropa that were passed down from Marpa. He received these instructions from Milarepa. And so in this way, Gampopa taught this union of the instructions of Mahamudra and the Kadampa. And he taught this as a way to practice. And so in this way, for some people, he taught them to practice the Kadampa instructions as the preliminary practice. And then he would teach others to practice the Mahamudra and the 6 yogas of Naropa as the actual practice. In this way, he combined these two into a single method for practice. And so this practice, first Gampopa gave, Dusum Khenpo received the instructions on this practice first from Gampopa. And then he practiced them, and then he spread the teachings. And when he did this, then Gampopa said to him one day, he said, son, first go to Kham, and to Khampo Gangra and Kham, and do your practice. And then go perform the benefit of beings in central Tibet. And so in this way, Dusum Khenpo followed these instructions and founded the 3 sites of the body, speech, and mind. First, he went to eastern Tibet in Kham, and he went to the location of Khampo Gangra, and he founded the seat of the body. Then he went to Kamarilen and founded the second seat. Then he went to the seat of the mind in Tsurpu, and he founded the seat of the mind, the Akanishta monastery of Tsurpu. And in this way, he founded these 3 seats, and he also ended up founding the practice lineage of the Karma Kagyu lineage. Through founding this Karma Kagyu lineage, the Dharma has spread, and he gathered many different students. And so in gathering these different students, he first founded these 3 seats, the first, second, and third seats, and gathered these students. Some of them practiced the instructions on Mahamudra. Some practiced the instructions on the 6 yogas. And some practiced the instructions on increasing the relative bodhicitta through the instructions on mind training. And so through this, he was able to initiate the practice lineage of the Karma Kagyu. And so these are the instructions of the union of the Kadampa, of the rivers of the Kadampa and the Mahamudra. These instructions have come down to us, and we have now received the opportunity to be able to practice them. And this is because of the compassion and the blessings and the power of the first Karmapa Dusum Khenpo. So we have this opportunity to receive the compassion and blessings of Dusum Khenpo. Following Dusum Khenpo came the second Karmapa, Karma Pakchi. Now, Karma Pakchi had a different way of showing his activity than the first Karmapa Dusum Khenpo, because his students and their needs and their abilities were different. He showed his activity in a different way as well. He was known for showing his activity through his miracles and clairvoyance. And so when he would display some sort of a miracle, there were some students who'd see the miracle and immediately feel a lot of faith. Then there would be some students who would see the miracle, and they'd be so scared that they'd have to enter the gate of the Dharma. And so in this way, he showed many different miracles. One of these was when they were building the main statue in the main shrine room at Tsurpu Monastery, the great Buddha at the main Buddha statue at Tsurpu Monastery. And at the time that they were doing this, they didn't have great technology. Because they didn't have great technology, when they cast the statue, it came out just a little bit crooked. And so when the statue was a little bit crooked, there wasn't a whole lot they could do, because it was big, thick, and heavy, and it's hard, and there was nothing they could do to fix it. So it was really hard to fix. And so then the Gyaltsen Karmapa said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. I can fix this statue. And so then he sat down in front of this main statue, and he sat there and he held his breath. And he sat kind of crooked, just like the statue. And then he straightened himself up a little bit. The statue straightened itself up a little bit. He straightened himself up a little bit more, and the statue straightened itself a little bit more, until it was almost completely straight. And then the maker said, oh, okay, that's great. Now that's fine right now. And then he stopped. And so that is one of his activities, one of his miracles. So this activity of the Karmapa is really completely inconceivable. And the way it's inconceivable is, if you think about it, in recent time there was the weakening of the teachings and the attempt to extirpate the teachings from Tibet. And so the teachings were weakened. There was a lot of destruction in Tibet. And if you think about it, like for example, with the main Buddha statue at Tsurpu, if you think about it, they put a bomb in it under the Cultural Revolution. They put a bomb under the statue and blew it up. So the ordinary way you think about it is that they destroyed the statue. But actually, in terms of the Dharma, that is not what happened. Because before you had a single statue that was performing its activity. But after it was blown into bits, there are all these fragments, and they took all these fragments to all over the world. And because all these fragments were brought all over the entire world, the blessings of that statue have really filled the entire world. And so this is the result of the statue being blown up. And so now it's been many, many years after the activity, after the second Karmapa was present or passed into nirvana. And so, but the activity of the statue continues. Even after it was born, it's not like, after it was blown up, it's not like the statue's activity was destroyed or lost. It's in fact, actually, it has really increased, and it has been brought all over the earth. There have been all over the world. Many fragments of the statue have been brought everywhere to the world. They've brought their blessings to many places in the world, and many students have been able to receive the blessings of the statue because of this. The third Karmapa was Rangchen Dorje. And so the third Karmapa, Rangchen Dorje, had a very different way. He was a great scholar and practitioner, and his main activity was to write treatises. So he wrote many treatises, he completed some old treatises, and his main treatises were what we call the profound inner meaning, the Hevajra Tantra in 2 parts, in 2 books, and the commentary on the Supreme Continuum. So the first of these is the commentary on the profound inner meaning, which explains how the channels, winds, and drops within our bodies move. The second is the commentary on the Hevajra Tantra in 2 books. And then the third is the Supreme Continuum, an explanation of how it is that all sentient beings have Buddha nature and the characteristics of that Buddha nature that all sentient beings have. And then as sort of branches or subsidiary treatises, he also wrote 2 other treatises, the Differentiating Consciousness from Wisdom and the Teachings on Buddha Nature. And so in Differentiating Consciousness from Wisdom, he teaches how there are, in the impure phase, there are the 8 consciousnesses. How in the pure phase, there are the 5 wisdoms. How it is that the one transforms into the other. How we need to transform in them. He teaches in this how it is that at first in the impure phase we have the confused appearances and how we can purify those appearances, and when they do, how their nature becomes the 5 different wisdoms. And so he also teaches in this how that nature of the 5 different wisdoms is not something that we need to look for from someplace else. It is the Buddha nature that all sentient beings have present within themselves. And so in this way he wrote 5 great treatises. And these treatises have been present, have been extant for many different generations. But even though they've been present for it's been many different generations since they've been around, their blessings have not weakened at all. And so many people have listened to and contemplated them and received their blessings in this way. Others have practiced them through meditation, received their blessings, and been able to achieve results through them. Over many years, I've had many opportunities to teach these 2 treatises, the 2 treatises, Differentiating Consciousness from Wisdom and the treatise on Buddha Teacher, many times. And when I've taught these to my students, I feel like they have been able to come to understand through them. What is the essence of consciousness? What is the essence of wisdom? How is it that Buddha nature is present within all beings? And how is it that we can practice Mahamudra? And so first they first they contemplate and listen, and then they can meditate upon it and develop an experience of this. And this isn't just something that comes from my explanations. There is a continuum of the blessings that comes all the way down from the third Karmapa, Rangchen Dorje. The fourth Karmapa was Rinpoche Dorje. And Rinpoche Dorje was a very strict monastic. He forbade his students from eating meat or drinking any sort of alcohol. He had very pure discipline. And so this is recorded in the histories about the fourth Karmapa Rinpoche Dorje. Now, during the time of the second Karmapa Karmapakchi, the third Karmapa Rangjun Dorje, and the fourth Karmapa Rinpoche Dorje, Tibet and India were both under the power of the Mongol emperors. And the Mongol emperors were very fierce and wrathful emperors. They were very strict emperors, and they would often kill people, kill or terrorize people. They were very fearsome and terrifying emperors, and also not only were they fearsome and terrifying, they were also very powerful. And so the Gyeongsang Karmapas, in order that people would not experience such fear, they went and they taught the Dharma to the Mongol emperors. Through teaching these emperors Dharma, they were able to tame somewhat their anger and their pride and their jealousy. And so through this, they were able to bring many beings to happiness. And so this is also some of the inconceivable activity of the Karmapas.
The
fifth Karmapa was Deshin Shekpa. And so at the time of the fifth Karmapa Deshin Shekpa, that was the time that there was the change in dynasty from the Mongol dynasty to the Ming dynasty, which was a Chinese emperor. And so the Gyeongsang Karmapa was able to go to see the Ming emperor and to be able to teach him, to give him the Dharma, to give him the blessings and empowerments and so forth. And he taught him to be not to harm the world, and to, in particular, not to harm different religious traditions. This was a time when there was a great sectarian tendency, and the Gyeongsang Karmapa taught the Ming emperor not to have any sectarian bias, but rather that there are many different traditions for the different capabilities and fortunes of different students, and so he advised him to be without any sectarian bias towards them. And so actually, Chinese emperors, it is very difficult to instill faith in Chinese emperors. And so the fifth Karmapa Deshin Shekpa did this, instilled faith in him by showing a lot of different miracles. He went to China, and he spent 100 days in China. And during those 100 days that he spent in China, he did 100 different miraculous things. On each of the days, he did a different miraculous event. And so these are known as the 100 different wonders. And each day, now, this is a time before there were digital cameras, and so they couldn't just take snapshots of every different miraculous event. But what they did at this time is they actually drew paintings of each of the events, and there's a painting for each of the different events that were done. On some days, there would be a big rainbow in the sky. Some days, there would be the appearances of the 16 elders, of 16 arhats. So there are many different miracles that occurred during that time. And during this time, they were actually written down, or they were actually drawn as they appeared. And these weren't falsified. These are not fake drawings. These are actual drawings. And these are drawings that actually are still, you can still go and see. And it is through all of these different miracles that the fifth Karmapa Deshin Shekpa was able to bring the Chinese emperor to the Dharma. And by bringing the Chinese emperor to the Dharma, then the Dharma was able to spread in both China and in Tibet. And there were no difficulties to the Dharma spreading. There are all of the favorable conditions that were necessary were present, so that the Dharma was then able to be present for a long time. The sixth Karmapa was Thungma Dundin. And his main activity was to prepare all of the ritual texts. He prepared the ritual texts for the Vajravada he practiced, the ritual text for the Jinasagra or Gyaltsen, and also the ritual text for the protector Bernak Chen. So he prepared all these texts and made it very easy for us to practice them. And so in this way, this is one way that his activity occurred. And then also, in order to make it easier for us to do the visualizations, to clear visualizations of the creation phase of the protector Bernak Chen, he also started the Lama dancing, the Mahakala Lama dancing. The reason he did this is that sometimes when students begin to meditate upon the creation phase practice, in order to be able to picture what the deity looks like, we'll draw a tanka. But when you draw a tanka, it's flat. And so in order that you don't visualize the deity as being flat, then you make a sculpture. But when you have a sculpture, then, it's this thing, and it doesn't move. And that's not very helpful, when you're meditating. And so what do you need to do when you're meditating? Well, you actually need to be able to see the deity as like a living, breathing, moving, sentient being. And so in order that beings would be able to see this, he had them put on masks and wear costumes, and he taught them how to do the dance and the Mahakala Lama dancing. And when you do this Mahakala Lama dancing, then you get the feeling that the wisdom deities are actually present, that the Yidam deity has actually come and that they're actually present. And so this is why we do the Lama dancing. And this particular form of activity began with the 6th Karmapa, Thungma Dindan. The 7th Karmapa was Chudat Gyatso. And the way that he spread his activity was by not staying in a single place. Instead, he stayed in the great encampment, which moved from place to place. And in this way, he brought the teachings to many different locations in Tibet. And so, in this way, brought the opportunity to study to many different people. He also gave the opportunity to study a great treatises, and we still have that opportunity. In particular, he composed a great treatise called The Ocean of Literature, of Logical Literature, on the texts on validity. And this is a treatise that we still have and that we still study. And the reason that this text is so important is because sometimes, we might just say, oh, the Buddha's great. But what's the reason? We need to know the reason why the Buddha is great. Or we might say, there are past and future lives. Well, what is the reason why there are past? And it's not okay just to say that there are past and future lives. We also need to be able to see the reasons. And so the reasons are clearly taught. Of course, they're clearly taught in the root texts on validity, the texts on pramana. But Chudat Gyatso taught these especially clearly, and he emphasized these in this. And so this is something that when he taught it, it's not just something that he taught from his own studies. Rather, he taught it from remembering his own previous life when he had been born as Dharmakirti and first taught these teachings. And so, in the future, if these treatises can be translated into English and Chinese, it will be very important. Especially now in this time when we have a lot of influence from science. We need to be able to say, well, what are the reasons? What are the true reasons why there are past and future lives? What are the reasons why there is karma, cause, and effect? What are the reasons why the Buddha is a genuine and authentic great being? So these are things that we need to know, that we need to understand. And so this is the activity that comes from this treatise, The Ocean of Logical Literature. Then there was the 8th Karmapa, Mikyo Dorje, and the 9th Karmapa, Wangchuk Dorje. And the manner in which they spread the teachings was by primarily spreading the teachings of scripture and explanation. They wrote commentaries on the great treatises. They wrote commentaries on the treatises of Prajnaparamita, which teach in the sutras of Paramita, it teaches that all phenomena are emptiness. And so in order to emphasize and to clarify this meaning, they wrote the great treatises on the middle way. And they also taught treatises on the Abhidharma, which teaches about what are the 5 aggregates, what are the 4 noble truths, and so forth. And so the 8th Karmapa, Mikyo Dorje, wrote these treatises, and very detailed treatises with very detailed and extensive logic. And then the 9th Karmapa, Wangchuk Dorje, took these treatises, and in order to make them easier for beginners to enter and easier for people who are not so intelligent to understand them, he condensed them. And so in this way, they performed their activity of spreading the teachings.
The
10th Karmapa, Chang Dorje, his particular form of activity was art. He drew made a lot of paintings and drawings. He sculpted a lot of statues. And his particular way of drawing and painting, from out of that, there developed the karma gadri, the karma encampment or karma gadri style. And so the founder, the person who started this style, was the 10th Karmapa, Chang Dorje. So he was a very skilled artist, and sometimes he drew in the ordinary fashion, but sometimes he also drew in a miraculous way. For example, there was one time that he was in the land of Chang, which is in the south of Tibet. And when he was there, then the king of Chang asked him to paint a painting. And so the Karmapa agreed that he was going to do the painting. But while he was there, he had a lot of other work that he was doing, and didn't have much time to work on the painting. Then it came to be the day before he had to give the painting to the king. So he took all his paints, he mixed them up, and then he threw them at the canvas. And when he threw them at the canvas, they landed and they made a beautiful drawing of the deity. And so it's a really, wonderful, amazing way of drawing. And so in this way, he painted many paintings, some normal way, some in the miraculous way. He also made many sculptures and founded the Karma Gadri style of art. And when he's founding this and doing this art, it's not just a question of making art, of drawing paintings and making sculptures. Because when we do the creation phase practices of visualizing the deity, we need to visualize the deity. And when you visualize the deity, if you sort of visualize a sort of crooked, second-rate sort of deity, then your meditation isn't going to be all that good. And so you need to have a good tanka. You need to have a good painting of the deity. And so the 10th Karmapa Chang Dorje drew these paintings. He made many sculptures. And in this way, he really had all this inconceivable activity. The 11th Karmapa and the 11th Karmapa Yeshe Dorje and the 12th Karmapa Chanchu Dorje, of course, had many inconceivable types of activity, but the primary activity that they showed their students was having a short life. By having a short lifetime, they instilled the understanding of impermanence in their students. And so by instilling this conception of impermanence in their students, they were able to perform their activity. The 13th Karmapa, Doodle Dorje, had a very different way of performing activity than the other Karmapas. His way of performing activity was to be free of action and very simple in what he did. This is the particular feature of his activity. So from time to time, he would teach the Dharma to cats and to birds. In fact, it even tells it tells about this in his life story. It tells about how he would teach cats the Dharma, and then the cats would not harm any other sentient beings, and the cats would spend time among the mice. And so these are sort of the blessings that he gave. And this is his activity of lacking any action, and this activity of having a kind art, and his way of bringing about the blessings of the Dharma. The 14th Karmapa was Tekchot Dorje. And so in his time, he, rather than having the very simple and inactive activities such as the 13th Karmapa, he began doing very complicated and very elaborate activities. He reinstituted the 10th day feast of the Great Encampment. He instituted many other rituals and so forth. And so by doing very elaborate rituals and so forth, he was able to again spread the teachings. The next Karmapa, the 15th Karmapa, Kachap Dorje, practiced the union of the Kaju and the Nyingma teachings. Now, at that time, the Jamgon Kongtrul Lodrataya had compiled the treasury of the precious Terma, and in order to spread this, he had it engraved, or he had it published, and. So with all of the terma, there's the danger that all of the transmissions and all of the empowerments of these would be lost. And so in order that the blessings, the transmissions, and the empowerments not be lost, he had it printed, and he also began giving the empowerments of these. And so in this way, through giving the empowerments and the transmissions of the treasury of precious terma, he was able to make sure that most of the empowerments of the terma and most of the transmissions of the terma would be continued and would be not lost. And in this way, he performed his vast activity. Then there was the 16th Karmapa, Rangjung Rikpe Dorje. And of course, he had many different types of activities, but to sort of give a really easy example of his activity, of his great blessings, the 16th Karmapa, Rangjung Rikpe Dorje, really loved birds. And because he loved birds, he would teach them Dharma, he would give them the blessings, and through teaching them and giving them the blessings, many were be able to show the signs of receiving the blessings, the signs of having been taught the Dharma. I saw this myself. When a bird would die, when one of his birds would die, of course, when a normal bird dies, the bird falls down and it dies. But when there was a bird who had been blessed by the 16th Karmapa Rangjung Rikpe Dorje, when it would come to the time of death, it would sit there. It would sit like this, and sitting like this, and then it would die, and it would sit in meditation after it died. And I saw this myself many times, and so. If you think about it, in one way you say, oh, this is kind of a small thing, but if you had to make something like that yourself, it'd be really difficult to make it. You can't just do that. Blessings don't come like that. And so this is really a sign of the, real compassion and the power and the blessings of the 16th Karmapa. So we can see, when we look at the lives of all the Karmapas, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Karmapas had a lot of activity with the Mongolians. The 5th Karmapa with the Chinese. The 10th Karmapa with the king of Chang. The 6th and 7th and 8th Karmapas spent their time spreading the teachings in Tibet. When they saw faults, they did their best to eliminate those faults and to bring in greater detail. They did their best to revive things that had weakened. And so this has all happened because of their compassion and their blessings. And in particular, with the 16th Karmapa, as you all know, he appeared in a time when the Dharma was forced to spread to many different lands in the world. And so there was the condition to spread the Dharma. And because of his compassion and resolve and his blessings, he opened the door for the Dharma to spread in America. And so this has given us all the opportunity to come here. It gives me the opportunity to come here and teach you the Dharma. It gives you the opportunity to come here and listen to the Dharma. And so this is the great blessing, the wonderful blessings of the Karmapa. Through his blessings, this seat here was founded. And through this seat being founded, I have this opportunity to come here and teach you the Dharma. Many teachers have the opportunity to come and teach the Dharma. Those who want to listen to the Dharma can have the opportunity to come and listen to the Dharma. Those who want to practice the Dharma have the opportunity to come and practice meditation. And so these are the particular blessings that make this place unlike any other place. This comes out of the compassion and the blessings of the 16th Karmapa. And so it is important to know this, to understand this. And when we know and understand it, it's important to rejoice in it. And then through rejoicing in it, we need to have great faith and devotion in this.
And there's
the 17th Karmapa, Urgyaltsen Dorje. He has many different types of deeds and activities, but the deed of his that is able to instill the most faith and sincerity is the Kaju Munlam. And so he has reformed the Kaju Munlam. He prepared a new ritual for the Kaju Munlam. And this ritual, or this text for the Kaju Munlam, it fits with the sutras that taught by the Buddha. It fits with all the treatises and the written by all the great masters and scholars. And this is something that everyone all over the entire world can recite together. Everyone can recite it and understand it. If you are Tibetan, you can recite it in Tibetan and understand the meaning. If you are Chinese, you can recite it in Chinese and understand the meaning. If you are Indian, you can recite it in Hindi. If you are Russian, you can recite it in Russian. If you are Spanish, you can recite it in Spanish. And it's not just a question of reciting it with your mouth. It has been translated, the meaning has been translated just as it should be. And so as you recite it, you can also make the prayers, you can make the supplications and the aspirations. And so people from all over the world gather to make these prayers, to feel the devotion. And this isn't something that just happens in a single location. Of course, it first started in Bodh Gaya, but now it is spread all over the whole world, and there are Kaju Munlams that are being held in many different locations. And so this is a form of the activity of the Karmapa that we can actually see for ourselves. And of course, the 16th Karmapa has also come here to KTD. He has granted his compassion and his blessings here. He has come here, and this gives you also the opportunity to practice here at KTD. This opportunity to practice here in KTD comes, of course, from the activity of all of the 17 Karmapas, but in particular, it comes from the activity of the 16th and the 17th Karmapas. So you're incredibly fortunate to have this ability to do this. And so in the future, if you can continue to come here and to practice, so you can continue to come here and listen to the Dharma and to practice the Dharma, if you do this, it will be very good and very beneficial for you. And so I am saying this to you as an encouragement to all of you. So that is enough for this evening. Tomorrow we will begin with the actual teaching on the Vajradhara lineage prayer.